And when I click record, you can go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Okay, let me get out of here.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm gonna, there we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Wherever you're from, good afternoon, good morning. My name is Nneka Owens. I'm a relationship therapist. My specialty is working with couples, in addition to working with individuals who are suffering from depression and anxiety. I am so happy to be here. I would like to get a sense of where everyone is from. If you can share that for me, please, that would be great. Florida. My father was born and raised in Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to be exact. So welcome. Anybody else would like to share where they're from? New York, New Jersey, currently in Bell. Okay. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Anyone else would like to share? Okay. Well, again, welcome and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. The topic for today is the cost of approval. And like I said, I'm a mental health therapist. So I work with a lot of clients with a lot of varying issues. But one of the things that I really like to discuss with a lot of my clients, be it, couples or individuals, I think everyone can relate to how people-pleasing behavior can impact your mental health. And so that's what we'll be discussing today. Um, have a question for everybody before I share my slide, and I want you to think about this. Has there ever been a time where you said yes, but you really wanted to say no? And how did you handle that? Would love to hear from you guys. I'm going to repeat okay. Um, Someone said, I just grumbled to myself and I did it. So, okay, okay. Anyone else would like to share? Like anytime you said yes, but you really wanted to say no. If I can get some interaction here, that I would love to hear some stories. Let me see. Okay. Well, I'll share one. Um, Sometimes. Okay. I would say that's good. So if everyone is knowing where they stand on things and they're not overcommitting themselves, I think that's a great thing because a lot of times, okay, my soft spot is for family. Um, my soft spot is for family. It is way easier for me to put boundaries in other scenarios. Okay. And I often say that too. When I think about people pleasing, I don't necessarily, because I love to please my family, but I think there are some boundaries centered around pleasing my family as well and making sure that I take care of myself. I think sometimes we can, if there's people in the audience that are mothers or and fathers, sometimes we can put our family's needs before our very own. But like how they say on the plane, when you're on that plane and they say you got to put your own mask on before you help other people, I feel like that's the way it is in everyday life. So again, the topic for today is the cost of approval and how mental health can be impacted if we are chronic people pleasers. And I can admit that I am a recovering people pleaser because I like to see people happy. And I think it kind of comes with the territory too, with me being a relationship therapist, that I like to see everybody happy. But I think it's important that we're aware if we are not setting those boundaries around people, that we can overcommit ourselves and fall short in taking care of ourselves. Let me see, I do put others before myself. What do you think, Christine? I appreciate you sharing that, Christine. Do you feel like there's always a why to our behavior? Why do you feel like you put your others' needs before your own?
Because I feel like I have to make sure that other people or my kids and they have to be okay. If they're
Okay.
not okay, I won't be okay.
Okay. And I can understand that. We always want to see our kids happy. But do you think sometimes, Christine, that there are times where you say to yourself, your your container is empty and you need someone to pour into you?
Even if so, I think that's very bad for me. I don't try to make it happen.
Okay. Okay. That's fair. That's honest. I think it's important for us to assess. A lot of times in life, we have to kind of reassess where we are in life because, like I said, when we pour so much into others, we're left empty sometimes. And it can impact our overall mental health. And without good mental health, everything it suffers around you. So one of the things is, does anybody else want to share, like I said, the cost of approval, how if you are a people pleaser, it can be in a personal setting, professional setting. It doesn't just have to be in a personal setting, but it can also be in your professional settings as well, where we always, like I said, overcommit. And again, you're not leaving enough self-care for yourself. Does anyone else want to share? Okay, I'll share a story. I remember having a client. It was a male client, and he was a football player, and he told me that, and he was a good football player, but anytime he didn't make good plays on the field, his father, and they lost the game because, like I said, this particular person was, he was a good football player. But the times that he had a bad game, when he got off that field, his father wouldn't talk to him. He wouldn't talk to him for days because he felt like, you failed me. So in that case, it was almost like for that individual that in order for people to be happy with me, I got to be accommodating what they need from me all the time. So you can just about imagine with that kind of scenario, a person can either grow up feeling, defeated, like, here I am, I got this great talent, but I am not gonna make the mark all the time. And so a person can very well grow up feeling like, I gotta please everybody. So it's almost like a condition. In order for me to love you, in order for me to care about you, there is a condition. And we don't necessarily want to send that message to our kids, that in order for us to be happy with you, you got to be doing exactly what I want you to do. Does anyone have a story that they would want to share, in regards to people pleasing and how it can impact your mental health? Before I start my slide.
Well, I think for me, you get caught up in a cycle, right?
Mhm.
Because I remember growing up with my father. It was kind of similar to football, but it was more like the expectation of good grades and the expectation that you had to be at the top of the class. And if you were at the top of the class and you had the same exact grade that you had last month, then that means you made no progress. And so it was being caught between people pleasing, so trying to please my father. But then what I realized is that people pleasing, just that trait just stayed within me, right? It
Oh yeah.
stayed within me where I always wanted to excel. So independent of the fact that my father wanted me to do well, then I just kept a trait that I have to do well, I have to excel no matter what. And so that influenced the way I lived out the rest of my life and it, beyond my child.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Because a lot of times it becomes so normalized. The people pleasing behavior becomes so normalized, you don't even know it. It can be as something as small as if you're talking to someone, you're sharing with them, and they interrupt and share their story, as opposed to really taking in what you have to say. And you don't say anything. You don't say, hey, I was talking, I was sharing. And you just let that person just kind of, run all over you. And as opposed to kind of standing up for yourself and saying, hey, I really did have something to share. It could be something as small as that. It could be something as small as overthanking someone, over apologizing to someone. And I think we all can be guilty of that sometimes, or maybe not, but it's something to consider. So what I want to do now, I want to share my screen. And I want to talk about the transactions because this is about financial wealth. And for me, it's about mental wealth. So they're both very, very important. So I want to share my screen right here. So I want you guys to consider, okay, what people-pleasing behavior is. So if you can read that definition there. And everything is about awareness because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. So you got to be aware if you are a people pleaser. Because, like I said, sometimes things can become so normalized that you don't know that you're doing it. So, in assessing certain things, you get a sense of, okay, am I that way? It can be on a subtle level, it can be on a very, on a bigger level. But when you think about the transactions, when you think about the family messaging. Now, it may not be a direct message of you got to make everybody happy, but it's those interactions, like the example that I gave, where people start to feel like, it's my responsibility to make other people happy first. And the truth of the matter is, we really can't. We don't have that kind of power to make anybody happy, anybody sad, or anybody angry. I think it's up to the individual to decide how they're going to be in a certain situation. So the first transaction, the family messaging, what was the family messaging growing up? So that's something that we all have to think about. And then you think about the internalization. I need approval to feel worthy. And that can really take a hit to your self-esteem when you feel like the only way that I am going to feel worthy is if I am approved by everyone. And sometimes we over approve of our kids. We over compliment them. And not everybody is going to do that. And then they, in turn, they do the same thing. It's a cycle. And then the habit formation, prioritizing others. Like I said earlier, we feel like we're responsible for making people happy. And the reality is we can't always fulfill that because it's out of our control. People have to decide if they're going to be happy or not based on this situation. Then the adult behavior is chronic people pleasing. And like I said, self-disclosure, I was that person. No, I wouldn't I wouldn't do anything that was actually wrong. It could be something as simple as, hey, where you want to go out to dinner? And you just kind of go with the flow of what everybody else want to do and not considering, I don't really want to go there. This is where I want to go. So it could be something as subtle as that we don't necessarily think about what it is that we need before we think about how can I make the people around me happy? Like I said, be it in the personal relationships or professional relationships. Does anyone have any comments or anything they want to share as it relates to the transactions?
So far, no.
Okay. And then when you think of the cost, you think about the cost of a people-pleasing behavior. It's to your mental health. There's anxiety, there's burnout, there's depression, and then there's loss of identity. Because a lot of times when you are so focused on making other people happy, you don't really know who you are. And I think it's important for people to understand, like, what are my wants and needs? What are the things that are going to make me happy? And if you can't identify with that because you're always consumed with how other people are feeling, that is a problem. And I think if we go beyond that, you think about, again, we go back to the transactions. What were the earlier messages? What were the consequences of not being perfect? What were the consequences of, not making the mark based on what our parents told us how we should be? And again, people pleasing is not a bad thing, but it's bad when it's chronic, when you lose sight of who you are. Because I understand that sometimes we do want to please the people that we love, but it can't be at the sacrifice of losing yourself and not really understanding what your wants and needs are. So again, you had, instead of non-sufficient funds, you have non-sufficient care. And you have to figure out, like, how do I care for myself? How do I pour into me? And how do I let people know what I need from them? Because then at some point, if you don't know what your boundaries are, if you don't know what your needs are, you don't know, you haven't identified what your boundaries are. And then people start overstepping your boundaries. And so I think it's important for us to be able to identify like what our own wants and needs are, because the cost is non-sufficient care. And I think, like I said earlier, in order to care for the people that are around us, we have to care for ourselves first. Any comments on that? In terms of burnout, have you ever felt like, do you know what your wants and needs are? I ask that question sometimes in my sessions, and sometimes people can't wrap their head around it because they haven't necessarily taken the time to think about, what do I really want and need from the people that are around me? Is that something that we all consider, like what our wants and needs are?
Definitely resonates. I think we know what we want. Well, I can't say we, I say I know what I want and what I need, but sometimes I just put it on the back burner and say, well, I'm never really going to get it because I would want, hey, maybe I would want, a day where I can just put my feet up. I don't have to cook. I don't have to take care of anybody in my house and I just want
Right.
to relax. But then I think, oh, well, that means you might have to give up Sunday dinner or, what are you trying to raise, some kids? What
Yeah.
does that mean? So, um, you know, I know what I want and what I might need, but I don't necessarily always act upon
Yeah. But let me ask you this. A lot of times we have this internal narrative as it relates to why we don't um put what our wants and needs are, our requests. Like just last week, my husband, he works a lot. He works a lot. When we're at home, he's working. And sometimes I feel like I got to match that because he's working. I'm like, okay, I don't want to be just sitting on the couch looking at TV, he in his office working. So last Saturday, I said, you know what? I'm not policing him. I am not about to work like that, because that's how he grew up. He grew up just working a lot. So I said to myself, I said, and this was last Saturday, ladies and gentlemen, I said, I said, I'm having a pajama day. So I'm going to get up, I'm going to take a shower, and I'm going to put back on my pajamas and I'm going to be downstairs. I said, I'm not cooking anything. I said, you can order takeout, and I like this program called The Rookie, and I will be watching The Rookie for the entire day. So I'm binge watching The Rookie. And they didn't say, they actually were happy because it taught my kids and my husband that, look at mom taking care of herself, because I get up in the morning, I'm making breakfast, I'm doing this, and then I don't eat, then I run and get a bagel somewhere because I'm too tired and exhausted after taking care of everybody else. So there's times that you have to kind of decide, like, you know what? I'm not doing the routine things that I normally do. And that's what I did, and it felt good, and I'm going to do more of that. So I would like to hear more stories, other stories of just self-care. Like, what have you done, Myrna, in terms of taking care of yourself? I mean, I know you say it's kind of hard sometimes, but sometimes you got to have a hard position on, let me take care of me.
Right. I mean, for me, I think a couple things that I do is one, I try to go to Zumba, which is, with Caribbean music. I go a couple times a week. I haven't been good, over the last month, but that's a side note. But I go to Zumba, so that helps me relieve stress. That's my time. I tell people at work, don't get in my way. I got to leave at such and such a time so I can make it to class in time. So I do that. And then I also have, on Sundays, after Sunday dinner, after everything's done, people know that I got to go watch my movie. So I'm in my room watching my movie, catching up on my shows. Don't interrupt me, just leave me alone. So those are two ways that I kind of practice some self-care. But in my mind, you should probably have some type of self-care every single day, and I don't.
Yeah, every day. It could be a small meditation, reading scriptures, just something, like you said, every day we should, definitely pour into ourselves, and then communicating to others what it is that we need. I think that's important. I think when we are always looking, and I think as mothers, and I'm not, trying to make it about, women always doing everything, because fathers work very hard too. Um, but I think we do fall into just making sure everybody is happy. And I think one of the young ladies said, for her kids, yeah, she wants to people please for her kids. She wants them to be happy, and I think that's good. But where's the balance? I think it just understanding where the balance is in that, like what my kids can also do for me. Whether it's, I don't like to see a dirty kitchen. And I'm like, that makes me happy. So I want you to look to kind of, take care of me too. I think there's an exchange from the people that are in our lives. I feel like there has to be an exchange. It can't be one-sided, or it will. And then, when you think about, again, when that happens, it's that anxiety, it's that burnout, it's that depression, it's that loss of identity. And so when you think about depositing, and when we go to the rebuild, if you are a person who has been known to people please, you got to think about how do you make those deposits? How do you pour back into yourself? And that is with setting boundaries, self-care, and being able to say no to people. Let me think about it. Maybe, I think, because so often we want, people who are, of the mindset of caring for others at all costs. It's hard for us, when someone asks something of us, to have a quick answer, to say, yes, I can, to volunteer. And I have to kind of pull myself back and let other people move forward and do certain things and share the wealth. We all are here for each other, and I feel like we should be able to contribute equally. So I think it's important for us to understand, like, what are your boundaries? Because sometimes we don't know what our boundaries are until they're crossed. And so you get that nudge in your spirit, or I know I call it biofeedback, when someone has overstepped some boundaries, and you have to acknowledge that, you have to address it. And I think we can't ignore those things. So setting boundaries is very important, and knowing what your boundaries are, um, so that you can take care of yourself. Self-care, like me and Myrna was just talking about, what are the things that you are intentionally doing to take care of yourself? I think every single day there should be something that you do for yourself, because it really does send the right message to our kids when they see us taking care of ourselves. And again, like I said, being able to say no. I think so often, a lot of times, people pleasers, it's hard for them to say no because of that internal narrative. If I say no, are they going to be mad at me? If I don't go, are they going to be upset with me? And again, if people are upset with you because you have a boundary and you say no, and excuse me, ladies, I have fighting cold symptoms. But if people are upset with you because of that, really, is that your problem? And I'm like, is that really a friend if you are setting a boundary for yourself? If you don't feel like planning a party or going to a party, and you say no, maybe next time, and someone gets upset with you, I don't think that's something that you can control, because that's how that person is. But I think saying no, or maybe, or let me think about it, is an answer, and it's okay. It doesn't always have to be yes right away. Does anyone want to respond to that? Like overcommitting yourself. Does anyone ever overcommit themselves to something? And I think we talked about it earlier, and then I really want to hear from you, ladies. If there is a time where you feel like you have overcommitted yourself, and you want to kind of turn that, redefine that. But I think awareness is key, because you can't change what you don't acknowledge. If you don't acknowledge that you kind of overextend yourself, sometimes it's not something that you can actually change, and you will be NSC, not sufficient care. Um, so just consider it. But when you think about the withdrawals of overcommitting, neglecting needs, and pleasing others, like, again, where does that leave you at the end of the day? Not really knowing what your wants and needs are. Is there anything anyone want to add to, or any stories you would like to share?
Yeah, for example, myself, I think I overextend myself. My youngest son is in college, and I always make sure that I'm there for every single thing that he needs. And I don't ever look into, what does mom need? What does, mom have to do? But I'm always there to make sure that whenever he needs something, I'm always there. Okay. And I don't look into, what is it that I need to do for myself, what is it that I need to, for today, to get myself, some kind of time for myself. But let's say that I was going to watch TV, he calls for something, automatically it's okay.
Yeah,
It's Jonathan.
yeah, yeah. You
I
are
don't know how to say no.
okay. You don't know how to say no, but why do you where did that come from? If you don't mind sharing,
Mm-hmm.
where did that come from? Like, where did you learn that you had to be serving of everybody's needs? I mean, in this case, it sounds like is it just your son?
No, it was for everyone in my family. I have two sons, I have a daughter, and also my husband. It's like I had to be there to make sure that everyone was taken care of before myself.
Okay.
So where did that come from?
Yes.
I can't even tell you that. It just, I can't say that it came from somewhere. I just, I just started doing it. And
Okay.
from there, it I don't even know how to put it. It just started. I started doing it, and it never stopped.
Yeah. And like I said, and I really appreciate you sharing that, because like I said, a lot of times it can come from family messaging, but sometimes we don't recognize it's coming from family because it's so normal. It's the norm. It's whether it's an implicit or explicit message, you see it or you hear it. It's just what you do. It's what you have seen maybe your mother do when you were growing up. She took care of everything, and it's just a messaging, whether it's spoken or unspoken. So. And
I
then
can't say that it was no. It was not done for me.
mm,
Maybe that's where it came from. Let's just say.
you said it was not done for
No,
you.
no.
Okay. And so you decided, I'm going to do this thing differently. I'm going to
Most
make
likely.
sure
Yes.
that, so you go from the one end to the other end. I'm going to make sure that my family needs are met. They're not going to want for anything. And then there's no gray area there. So we're doing everything. But how do we get to a place of balance and making sure that your needs are not going unmet and their needs are? And I think kids, they really do appreciate if I'm exercising in the living room, my kids are like, "Oh man, mom, good job." They're really excited to see that. Yeah, they want me to take care of them too, but I think it really, you got to give yourself permission to take care of yourself, because one thing that we don't want to do, and I'm not saying this is the case for you, we don't want to have kids have this feeling of entitlement, because when they get out into the real world, no one's treating them like mama and daddy. So it's just like everyone's not going to love them the way that we love them. So, but I'm sure
No,
there's things that you're doing to create independence in them and self-assurance. And so I'm sure there's a balance there, but it sounds like also you need to take
no.
care of
I
yourself.
really need to stop doing it because I noticed in my youngest son, it is creating entitlement in him.
Okay.
And he's going to be 22 years old. And no, that cannot go, because when he does get into a relationship, that person will not treat him the way I treat him.
Yes,
So that
that's
needs to
right.
stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is about awareness. It's not about, making anyone feel guilty or anything, but it's just about a sense of awareness. Even if those who are listening, and I appreciate you listening, and you don't necessarily want to share, but I'm hoping that you're able to kind of look within yourself and say, okay, am I this person? Like I said, it can be very subtle. Like I said, I mean, I used to be the person to, say thank you, because that's what you're taught when when you're growing up, say please and thank you. And that's good. You want to say please and thank you, sit up straight. All these rules that we give our kids, and it's good rules, but sometimes our kids are going to miss it. And when they miss it, I feel like we can be a little hard on them. I can be a little hard on my kids too, if they're not showing their manners. And so I have to kind of pull back a little bit, because what I don't want to do is create this feeling of you have to always be perfect. You always got to get it right. And so that's another kind of um area that we have to kind of pay attention to in terms of our messaging. So there's two messaging. What you just expressed was that you're over compensating. You're doing so much for your kids. It can create that feelings of entitlement. And then on the other end, it can be, what's the point that I made? That, oh my God, I lost my train of thought. I am so sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm speaking too much.
No, you're fine. I appreciate the dialogue, but that we can create this perfection. Yeah, we can create this sense of perfection that they always got to be getting it right. And so the two together, like I say, it can be problematic. So we do have to create some kind of balance, with, what messages do we want to send to our kids and to our friends and to our, work colleagues? Like, what message do we want to send? Because we want a balanced message. Because like I said, we don't want to overcommit. We don't want to neglect ourselves, but at the same time, we don't want to be selfish either, because we do want to support people. But there has to be a balance, or there will be not sufficient care for yourself. And so we do have to consider that. And that's all really that I wanted to kind of, bring to this seminar, was for us to kind of have some awareness in terms of where we stand, asking yourselves the questions and being mindful. And so when you do that, because right now you may say, well, I don't do that. And then once you start working, after you leave this seminar and you are faced with a situation, you have to ask yourself, oh, okay, maybe I am. In some cases, not necessarily considering what is it that I really, really want. It could be something as small as, not small, but big. If you're married, going to, whose house do you go to for Thanksgiving? Um, you can say, you know what, I want to go over to my family's house. Or maybe you always go over to your husband's family's house and you say, this time, you know what, I want to go to my family. And so it's those decisions that we have to make, because we always want to make people happy. So it's that season of, what do you do? Like, what are the decisions that are going to be made when it comes to activities? And so those are things that we have to consider on a subtle level and on a big scale. You like, the cost of approval. Are we trying to make it like, oh, we're just such team players, I just kind of go along and I don't create a fuss about anything? But that's not always good, because it teaches people that you don't have needs. Your needs and wants don't matter. And they do matter. Anybody else would like to share? What are some of the things in terms of the holiday season? Um, what are some of the traps when it comes to people pleasing in your family for the holiday season, when it comes to getting together, hosting events? Like, what are some of the things that you see when it comes to catering to other people and, people? What are some of the things that you see when it comes to the holiday season? Because the holiday season can really kind of showcase a lot of, things that we may need to kind of tweak a little bit. What are some of the things that anybody want to share that? Like, what are some of the things during the holiday season that could be pitfalls when it comes to people pleasing?
Many commitments. I mean, you have, church group over here, you have work event over there, you have family. So you can't go to everything. So you can't please everyone. So it's more about being selective in terms of what are the things that I want to do, that I want to focus on, and then just attend. I'm not going to be able to do everything.
That's right. Yeah, you gotta. And I think I used to be that one. And thanks for sharing that, Myrna. Again, I used to be that person that wanted to hit all the events, but like you said, when you mature and you get older, I find that, you know what, I can't attend every event. I'm gonna have to choose. I'm gonna choose one. I'm not gonna go to 3 parties in one day, because you want to make everybody happy. It's that fear of rejection. It's fear of disappointing someone. So those are things that we do have to be mindful of. It's like, search within. What is it that I want? Not from a place of selfishness, but from a place of, let me take care of me. Let me really search, what is it that I really want in all different areas of your life. Like I said, be it personal or professional, really assessing what it is that you want. Because a lot of times as mothers, we don't look at that. We just want to make sure that everybody is happy. But I think people need to know where you stand too. Self-care is very important. Anything else? I think I'm at my time. Is there anything else anybody else would like to ask me? I'm open to, any questions in regards to me as a mental health therapist. If there's some things around this topic about mental health and the importance of mental health, especially during seasonal affective disorder with depression and anxiety being on a all-time high because we're not getting as much sun. That's more reason why we should make sure we're taking care of ourselves because we're not getting that natural vitamin D and things you can do naturally to take care of yourself during this season. Is any questions around that? Well, if there's not any questions, I will stop the sharing.
Nneka, can you tell people how they can work with you, if they can work with you, and how they can get in touch?
Well, I'm in the Metro Detroit area. I only have a license for the Metro Detroit area. However, I'm a mother-daughter coach as well, so I can counsel people all across the world as a mother-daughter coach. But in terms of clinical work, as a therapist, I can only practice here in Michigan, but if you have any mother-daughter needs, I can actually assist you in those needs. I can put my information in the chat here. Is that okay, Myrna?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. So I just put my website on there. You can kind of see some of the services that me and my team we offer. But like I said, if you're out of the state of Michigan, the only service that I can provide is mother-daughter coaching. And that's something that I'm very passionate about. Like I said, I love working with couples, and I also love working with mother-daughter relationships to help to strengthen those relationships if there are problems. Okay. Is that my time, Myrna?
That's your time. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Well,
We
thank you so
appreciate
much
you.
for having me. I really enjoyed it. You guys enjoy the rest of your holiday and Happy New Year.